Coming up on this edition of In the Line of Duty, how corrections officers can get into trouble and stay out of it.
We call it the prison mindset, or correctional common sense is what I like to call it. Safety and security begins from the moment that you drive onto prison grounds. It's important that as soon as you cross that gate and you're in the employee parking lot, that from that moment on, you are thinking security and safety.
Pit bull fighting, one of the ugliest scars on the American landscape. And look what the drug smugglers are using now to carry their stash. Lessons learned by the officers involved in the line of duty.
In law enforcement work, lives can change forever in an instant, and nowhere is this more true than among the many thousands who maintain the thinnest of those blue lines, the corrections officer. Hello and welcome to In the Line of Duty. I'm Don Marsh.
And I'm Ron Barber. Working inside jail and prison walls is a daunting task, one that requires a very special sort of person, because you are often dealing with very special sorts of people, hardened criminals, many with nothing to lose. It is one of the most difficult and dangerous jobs on earth, trying to control men and women who are willing to do just about anything to be just about anywhere else. There is nothing ordinary about this work, because to treat it as ordinary at any time could get you injured or killed faster than the slice of a razor, the twist of a hidden shank, or the grim rapier of a shard of glass. For you are not dealing with ordinary people. You are dealing with extraordinary people in extraordinary circumstances. And make no mistake, they are circumstances which, with rare exception, each and every one would do anything to escape. The maximum security Soledad Prison in California, a vast complex housing over 11,000 of the state's and the nation's most violent offenders. A site where corrections officers have seen just about every sight. But one thing all veterans who work inside prison walls will tell you: safety begins outside prison walls first.
Safety and security begins from the moment that you drive onto prison grounds. It's important that as soon as you cross that gate and you're in the employee parking lot, that from that moment on, you are thinking security and safety. Even just the simple task of locking up your car, making sure that whatever items that you have in your car, like a cell phone or extra clothing, are well hidden, that the car is locked and that you haven't left your keys on the hood or in the door or on the trunk lid. You'd be surprised how many times I walk from our staff parking lot into the institution and I just will pick up keys that are sitting on top of somebody's hood. Let me show you exactly the type of thing that I'm talking about. Here's a Ford pickup truck with a toolbox in the bed, and as you can see, it's not locked. The staff member has gone into work and left the box unlocked. Inside, we find not only boots, metal items, but we also have an adze here, which could be used as a weapon against one of the outside work crew officers, and then the inmate could escape. So it's very essential that when you have something like a pickup truck and you've got a toolbox in the back, that you make sure that that thing is locked at all times. Now we have another problem with this car also on the other side, where the employee has actually gone inside and left the keys to the car in the door, obviously giving an inmate ample opportunity to not only have a weapon, but also have a means by which he can escape. So we're going to take custody of these until we can find the employee. At no time will you ever leave your vehicle idling unattended. We don't have this problem mostly with employees here, but with delivery vendors who show up to make quick deliveries will often leave their vehicles running. As most institutions will have outside work crews that are assembled with inmates, although they're low-level security inmates, they still are outside of the double fence line. And you do not want to have the ability for one of those inmates to jump into a car that's idling and waiting for them and speed away. For that matter, people who drive into the institution with recreational equipment like bicycles or stuff like that should make sure that those are well secured and locked up, especially if they're in the back of a pickup truck or something like that, because we have a lot of rural roads out here where an inmate can jump onto a mountain bike and just pedal away and get up into the hills, and we'd have to track them down.
Your cell phone can be a magnet for a convict and a weapon to be used against you.
Cell phones have to stay in the cars. They cannot come into the institution. One of our best security tools here is that we can monitor inmate telephone calls. We know what's going on. With a cell phone, we could not monitor that call, and an inmate can plan an escape, a riot, or can orchestrate nefarious or illegal activities using a cell phone.
Remember, it's showtime the minute you report for duty. Don't give the inmates an opportunity to ruin your day.
When staff are prepared to enter the institution and the custody area, they should check their pockets and make sure that they don't have anything that can potentially be a weapon, like small pocket knives. I've actually taken these from staff as they're walking through the gate, not realizing that they have them in their pocket usually. There is no reason why anyone should have a pocket knife inside the institution. You're just asking for trouble, because an inmate will get a hold of it, and it may not be reported if one of these is lost. This is an inmate-manufactured stabbing weapon that was very recently recovered from an inmate. It's obvious that the blade is a commercial blade from a pocket knife. So the only way that an inmate can get a commercial blade from a pocket knife is from staff bringing in something like this and then losing it inside the institution. And we need to avoid this at all cost. So staff should always check their pockets and make sure that they're not bringing anything like that into the institution. Another problem that we seem to have is with staff bringing items like these all-purpose utility tools, generally called a Leatherman, where they have things like screwdrivers, scissors, and of course a knife blade on there. We've recovered 3 of these from inside the custody area within the last few years. Certainly it's handy to have one of these, but this defeats the purpose of tool control. If this is lost inside the institution, we wouldn't know it. So therefore, staff cannot bring these in at all. That includes the ones that are half this size and that people have on their key rings. I've actually recovered 2 of those from staff who had them on their key rings. Another thing that we remind custody staff is not to have handcuff keys that are not issued by the department and attached to their key rings. That is certainly not something that you want to lose inside the custody area, is an extra handcuff key, allowing inmates to free themselves from mechanical restraints, especially on transports.
Utensils with which you eat your food can be deadly in the wrong hands.
Flatware with their lunches in their lunchbox. Once you're working inside a prison, you have to realize that anything can be a weapon. And if you bring a metal fork, knife, or spoon with you, and an inmate gets a hold of that, then that's a weapon. It's always recommended that you bring plastic flatware, cutlery with your lunch. You have employees that will bring metal flatware in with their lunch, think everything's fine until they get home. When they're cleaning out their lunchbox, they're going to find that perhaps the steak knife is missing, or the knife is missing, or the fork is missing, and may just reach into the cupboard and pull out another fork and bring it in the next day without reporting that steak knife or fork is missing. and possibly in the institution where it can be used as a weapon. If you bring in glass bottles, make sure that you take that out of the institution with you, depending on your institution's policy. I have actually been in a housing unit where inmates were throwing glass bottles from the third tier towards the Sally Port officer, and it was not a pretty sight. Those things came down like bombs. So we have to make sure that we don't carelessly bring in weapons for the inmates.
They can be used for sometimes even melting down the plastic and put it against the walls, hiding their dough. If they seal it up, they can put the pruno and the seal ferment inside there. They keep it as a drink. Sometimes they'll go ahead and put a cover on the plastic, and as they're drinking it, you think that they're drinking water. In reality, it's not water, it's pruno.
Okay.
They mean manufactured alcohol.
Still, never let haste cause you to lose control of the ins and outs of a lockup.
You must make sure that your items like personal keys are on your body at all time. You don't want to put them in your desk drawer. You don't want to leave them in your lunchbox or put them in a jacket and drape the jacket over a chair. I make sure that my personal keys are attached to my body, and I check several times during the day to make sure that they are there and they're securely fastened. There's one thing that you have to realize with personal keys, that a lot of these keys can be altered to fit keys around the institution, and we do have inmates who have backgrounds in locksmithing or in the nefarious arts with lock picking and stuff like that. Some of the alarm box keys that people will have for their homes, where they're round keys or for safes or lockers, these can be altered to fit our alarm keypads here. So in effect, an inmate can actually cancel an alarm before it's actually been activated.
Bring in as few items as possible, says Officer Doglietto, and constantly make sure they're still there. Don't leave them laying on a desk. Inspect keys before your shift. Physically hand any necessary keys to your relief.
Sometimes, in spite of the efforts by our locksmiths, who are very good locksmiths, these can break or they can crack. Keys can wear out, especially in the bridge area right here, from use, and then they will drop off the key ring, and you'll not know they're gone until you need to use the key.
And make sure
all of the keys on our key rings face in one direction. They're one-sided keys. On the other side, there is no combination. This is so that we can turn the key ring towards our body when they're not in use, and an inmate cannot study the combination of the portion of the key. And that allows us to maintain a certain amount of secrecy about the combination portion of our key. An inmate can study this, and if he's got a background in locksmithing, he can manufacture his own key just by studying the grooves and ridges of the key. Any institutions that are the older institutions that do not have the electronic push button doors and still maintain a Folder Adams key set, it's vital that the inmates do not see the combination portion of the keys. You'll see quite often staff walking around here and the Folder Adams is just hanging by their belt, and inmates can study those keys. It's a very simple combination, and just by looking at it long enough, they can go back into a machine shop and manufacture their own keys, as they did in this case. Of course, with modern technology and the advent of cell phones, we also have the problem with laptop computers being brought into the institution by staff. Of course, we do not authorize laptop computers, and those that are authorized are adapted so that there is no internet connection or really any sophisticated software on there for other things than anything other than word processing or something of that nature. Should staff bring laptops into the institution and an inmate has access to that, and it's a personal laptop that still has a modem attached to it, then the inmates can log onto the internet and can do quite a bit of harm to the institution in the way of plotting escapes, fraud, or committing fraud on the public, or conducting nefarious activities such as drug transactions on the internet. So we are always mindful of checking bags and briefcases to make sure that the laptop computers are not coming into the institution. Computers are an issue with all institutions in that the wrong kind of computer in the wrong hands can create quite a problem. In other words, if you have an area that has color printers, scanners, laminating machines, an inmate can very easily manufacture his own state identification card or county identification card and slip right past the gatehouse and escape. So we must maintain items like that in a very secure area and with no inmate access at all. In fact, at this institution, those items are not allowed in the custody area at all.
And the pros point out, too, it's the little things that may not be lethal, but could become embarrassing and taxing.
Staff also have to be very careful about what they bring in their backpacks or their briefcases. I recommend that they never bring personal mail in with them, anything that has their address on it. I've actually stopped officers at the gatehouse who were bringing in checkbooks and their bills during some moment where they didn't have a lot of work to do. They were going to write out a couple of bills. A telephone bill is not something that you want an inmate to get a hold of. Your credit cards are not something that you want an inmate to get a hold of. Your checkbook definitely is something that you do not want an inmate to get a hold of. So it's best to leave that stuff either at home or locked up securely in your vehicle. Definitely don't bring periodicals or magazines that have your home address on them. It's best to make sure that the inmates don't know where you live, especially if you've had encounters with them or you've had to write them up for violations which either remove good time credits earned or may lead to prosecution where they have more time. So we take great efforts to protect our privacy by not letting them know where we live, and it defeats the purpose to walk in with a magazine that's got your address right on it and leave it on the desk where an inmate can get it. One of the concerns that we have of late is that inmates are perpetuating a fraud against the public inside the institution. One of the ways that they are doing this is that they have relatives or friends who work in areas that are sensitive to personal information such as driver's license, social security numbers, mother's maiden name, stuff like that. And then they will have these people either acquire credit cards in the names of these people that they have the information on, or they will have telephones put in various houses where they can call without incurring a charge to their relatives or friends. And it's a fraud. The people that they've stolen their identity end up with the bill.
Even something as innocent from the outside as inmate hobby programs should be considered suspect. Safety is first, last, and always.
For any institution that has a hobby program for the inmates to idle the empty hours, whether it's wood crafting or crafts, arts and crafts, or drawing, it's important to scrutinize the type of tools that inmates are allowed to have. If there is a jewelry making or metal project out there that the inmates are allowed to engage in, be careful that if they order a tool that says it's a flange cutter, that it's actually a small pair of bolt cutters that can cut through the fence line. If they order a coping saw, make sure that what they don't receive is a hacksaw, because a hacksaw is a nightmare inside a prison in the hands of an inmate. So you have to make sure that what they order is carefully looked at by a hobby manager, or preferably somebody who is custody, like an officer or above, sergeant, lieutenant, or captain. In some cases where inmates might be allowed to order small sharpening stones to keep their hobby tool sharp, Well, this can also be used to manufacture weapons and to keep the weapons sharp. So these things should not be allowed into an institution, and the hobby program should be carefully scrutinized and kept to a minimum. A lot of staff forget where they're working, that they have to be more cautious about items that they have on their persons, because if it does get lost, it potentially is either a weapon or a means by which the inmate can escape. Once again, we call it the prison mindset, or correctional common sense is what I like to call it. But we forget that people that are new to the institution generally don't have this common sense, and sometimes we forget to teach them that when we're working with them. So these are the things that the topics that we like to bring up during orientation or during the annual retraining of a lot of the non-custody staff.
Just as with your fellow officers who work the streets to fill up the prisons, getting home to your family is safety issue number 1. And upcoming in Volume 8, Program 5 of In the Line of Duty, learn how cons will try to get over on you any way they can, even if it means your life. And learn how a little respect can earn respect, up to a point.
I found that communication skills are probably your best tool for maintaining peace as well as safety and security of the housing unit. And quite often you can diffuse a very tense situation just with a little humor.
Now to questions. Are you extremely careful about leaving your vehicle locked and the key secured when you drive into work at a correctional facility or jail? Have you ever left your vehicle idling and unattended? Have you ever inadvertently brought anything into a prison or jail setting that could have been used as a weapon against you, against fellow officers? What was it? What is policy about bringing metal utensils into a correctional setting? Are they banned in favor of plastic forks, knives, and spoons? Are you as careful as was recommended regarding keys? Do you check frequently to make certain all keys are exactly where they should be? Are the use of laptop computers banned in the correctional facility where you work? If not, how are they secured from inmates? Do you ever bring in personal correspondence, financial information, or letters which an inmate could steal or in any way use against you? Prison hobby groups can be a source for trouble. Are such groups in your correctional and jail facilities carefully monitored? Has anything from such a group ever slipped past officers? What was it? What was done about it? Do inmates ever have access to items they could use to communicate improperly with outside sources, i.e. computers, laptops, laminating machines, copiers, color printers, and so forth? If so, are they carefully monitored? Do you understand the prison mindset and remain current with its constantly changing ebbs and flows? How do you keep current? Training, reading, continuing education, seminars.